A few months ago, in a Skype cast far, far away. After credits. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back at Ya. It's a dark time for the After Credits cast. Although the Death Twitter has been destroyed, internet trolls have driven podcast forces from their Kickstarters and pursued them across cyberspace. An evasive group of freedom fighters led by AJ Waseska have established a new secret base on the remote crowdfunding page of patreon.com/evacstation. For less than the cost of tying up those giant turtle robots from the snow planet, you can support this show, allowing us to broadcast to the farthest reaches of space.
Space.
Again, that's patreon.com/evacstation. You want to donate. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. We're not here just to try and make a podcast. We're here to do a podcast because there is no try. Welcome to the After Credits cast. And it's the only film podcast asking you to shave those rebels away. I'm your host, Aaron Wases Kenobi, and with me today is the Darth Metters.
The Force is with you, young Wases Kenobi, but you are not a Jedi yet.
Well, joke's on you, Metters. I've got the high ground.
Damn it! Not again! Anyway, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I wonder if he has PTSD from that. I really do.
I'm sure he does.
Thank you all for joining us on this week's episode. We're doing Empire Strikes Back. We'll get more of that in a minute, but first, let us talk about links down below. You can visit us on patreon.com/evacstation. Also, we can be listened to on YouTube, Peepa, iTunes, I guess Apple Podcasts. I haven't gotten that used to that yet. Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podcast Addict. All the platforms of choice right there for you. And if you want to follow us on social media, because we love hearing you guys talk to us about your favorite Star Wars theories or your hashtag Bring Spider-Man Back pledges. So please follow us on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter. You can also email us directly for more complex questions or long-form essays that we will certainly not throw into the shredder right away. Ryan, what is that email?
That email is, who's scruffy looking? Excuse me. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
I'll tell you who's scruffy looking. Fucking Sony CEOs right now. It's going to be a little bit of a dated reference, but we're recording the week they just news dropped that Sony and Disney, they ain't playing nice right now, and Sony might be taking Spider-Man back because they're idiots.
You know, hopefully, like by the time this airs, they will have figured out that that's the worst possible thing that they could do, and it will just be, we didn't understand, and it'll be fixed by the time this airs. That's my hope.
Like, I get it a little bit. You're a big corporation. You want to make all the money. I totally understand. But you're not going to get all the money if you are doing Spider-Man. That's like me giving a 6-year-old all those stuff to make Spider-Man movies themselves. Like, yeah, he's a great kid, but he's not going to make you a fucking $1 billion Spider-Man movie. He's not that talented. And Sony, you are that fucking 6-year-old kid who can't make a Spider-Man movie. I'm sorry. You don't know what you're doing. You just don't.
I think the sticking point was Sony wanted 50% of the
Disney.
income
Disney
gross.
wanted 50%, but
Disney wanted 50% of the income gross, but Sony was like, fuck that. And Sony wanted to give them 5% of the first dollar income, which is pretty good, but still, fuck that. So
that's what you give actors usually. If they're
like actors will make a killing off that, but the big ass corporation that Disney is, no.
Now I've seen arguments both ways. I've seen people say, "Oh, Disney makes billions on other movies. Why do they need to do it on this one?" My answer: they put all the hard work into it. They are the ones who film it, cast it, write it, direct it.
Like, they're the ones making the fucking movies, guys. Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't have.
They've just established proof of concept. They said, look. If you let us borrow the rights to Spider-Man, we can actually put out really awesome Spider-Man content, and we can bring revenue in for this IP that you guys own right now. You'll get a good chunk of that because we'll actually make something good out of it. And they proved that.
Twice.
Like Civil War, fucking Homecoming, Far From Home, Avengers, like Endgame, and fucking Infinity War. It's like, guys, like, they know what they're doing. But corporations are going to corporate.
Yeah,
I suppose.
It's depressing. And what sucks, too, is that we finally got Spider-Man on good feet after years of just stupid ideas like Spider-Man 3.
We finally got a really good Mysterio,
the
man.
Amazing films. We got Mysterio. We were
We got,
never
like, a
getting that in the Amazing
bomb-ass
Spider-Man
Mysterio.
films. We were never going to get that. And what's funny is the original...
Sony thinks they're hot shit because they put out Venom and people actually liked it.
Here's the thing, Ryan. I think Venom's a fluke. I think the next one's going to bomb hard compared to that one. Like, it's not going to bomb so bad that it'll not make money, probably, but it will definitely not make $800 million again. It will not.
Oh, I mean, and do you think Venom's gonna do great after like the news that Sony decided to say no, fuck you, we're taking Spider-Man back? You think people are gonna actually support Sony after that?
That depends. If Spider-Man is in the Venom movie, I could see that being a possibility. But you and me, people like us who are not happy with this news, we will probably not go see it right away. We will probably wait until DVD at the earliest.
I'll torrent that shit. Fuck it. I'm sorry. It's still fresh, guys. It's still fresh. Just happened.
It just happened today. It's a bummer. It's a real bummer. So yeah, let's talk about our week and what we've been watching real quick. Ryan,
it's on to more positive news.
Ryan, what's some positive things you've been watching?
Well, I finally got back into Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
I still need to start the new season. Still need to start it.
The third season just came out. I've only gotten to watch the first couple of episodes. I mean, it's everything that I remember. It's really, really funny. It's kind of got like this deadpan humor to it, which is really cool. And Alison Brie is as gorgeous as she is funny and talented. So just watching her in anything is really a joy. Mark Maron's fucking hilarious, but they're not afraid to go into like really hard plot lines and stories, so I am excited. The first 2 episodes have been fantastic, and I think they're only going to get better from here, so I'll keep you guys posted, but it's really good so far.
Cool. I'll keep mine short. Just a lot of catch-up, really. Still watching Parks and Rec. We're on season 5. Right now they're on the point where they're trying to recall Leslie Knope, and it's a fun venture. And I kind of want to see Wisecrack take a philosophy video shot at this one because they did so many things with The Office. I'm like, guys, this is right there for you. It's all political. It has libertarian stuff going on. It has all this like pro and anti-government stuff going on. It's an interesting thing. I'd like to see more depth to it.
Ron Swanson is the best.
Yeah, we just saw the one where he took a trip to Europe and got to see his whiskey factory.
Oh, Lagavulin.
Yep, it was cute. Really cute. I started reading the 3rd arc of the JoJo Bizarre Adventure manga. I haven't gotten to it in the anime form because I don't want to watch the subbed version because I want to be able to just watch it and not have to worry about reading it. Now, I'm not anti-sub, but if I don't have to, I don't want to. But the dub also changes so many of the names of the characters because of copyright infringement, because they name them after, like, songs or bands or musicians. They had to do that. So I'm like, well, I don't want to watch this butchered version, so I'll just watch the fucking fan-translated manga instead.
That's fair.
Yeah, for those who are curious what kind of stuff I'm talking about, they have a monster whose main ability is called Crossfire Hurricane, which is a line from one of the Rolling Stones songs.
Isn't one of the characters named Robert E. Speedwagon?
Yes, actually, yeah, that is in the first season. And there's a villain in season 2 called AC/DC.
Oh,
they are not subtle by any means.
Oh, Lord.
But no, this is the season I'm on now where they start, or I guess the arc now, I should say, where they start having, like, stand battles, which is the, like, Persona-style kind of fights, but way more intense, and they're fun. I definitely think that they were going to run out of ideas with the Hamon, like, light-bending powers they had in the previous 2 arcs at some point, and it seems like a really weird jump to go, but I like it. It's fun, so... And then, lastly, I played some tabletop simulator Descent over the weekend with some buddies of mine, doing some pre-made maps I put together, and there are some glitches, some hitches here and there, but overall, it turned out really good. I've made some improvements to future maps, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it next time.
Congrats, man.
Yeah,
Shit.
good stuff.
Can't wait to check it out.
Good stuff. With that, let's get on to this week's episode. This week, we jump the hyperdrive over to episode 5, Revenge... Wait, why did I write Revenge of the Sith? Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back. I was probably on autopilot or some shit. Directed by Irvin Kershner and written by Lee Brackett, Lawrence Kasdan, and George
I'm sorry.
Lucas.
Pause for just a hot second. There's somebody knocking on my door.
Oh.
Hold on. Sorry. Hold on.
Hey, now, folks, we got live stuff happening here. So there's a door being knocked on. I can't see it, but I'm going to just speculate. So he's opening the door. There's a man in a suit.
Hello?
I believe he's a federal agent. I believe he's got a warrant for his arrest. Yep. There's some sounds in the background. Definitely warrants. Definitely some guns being brought out. I'm not hearing any firing, though, so I think he's safe for the moment. He's got his hands up. They're interrogating him now. They're trying to find where the where the stashed bootlegs of Star Wars are. Don't you worry, folks. He won't crack. Not under pressure. No way. I don't know if I'm going to cut this part out or not, but it's just kind of fun to make jokes about this. So it looks like the FBI agent's not really an FBI agent at all. It's actually a Mormon in disguise trying to convert Ryan. It happens. Don't you worry. And Ryan's back.
Apologies.
Ryan, how did that FBI agent / Mormon treat you?
Fine. I had a bit of an issue with the power outage a little while ago, and they came back 3 hours later. But that's neither here nor there.
Oh, did you hit that storm earlier today too?
No, it wasn't even a storm. Apparently I share a power grid with the next door neighbors, and that's a thing.
Gotcha, okay. Anyway, where did I leave off? Right. So I listed off the writers. So anyway, thanks to this crack team in a marvelous cast, the film would go on to gross a lifetime total of $247 million and 916,000 worldwide. An estimated 13 times its budget.
Yep.
That's pretty dang good.
Classic.
We'll have more stuff about that in the fun facts. I'll tell you that much right now. The cast includes Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Peter Mayhew, Jeremy Bulloch, Sir Alec Guinness, both David Prowse and James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, Billy D. Williams, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and the star of the Indiana Jones trilogy, Harrison Ford. There were only 3 of them. You've been lied to.
Oh, man. What was his son in that fan fiction movie? Mutt? Was that his name?
Mutt, turd, trash, something like that. I don't know. We got some awards. Got some awards for this movie. Well-deserved, I should say. An Oscar for Best Sound and Special Achievement Award for Visual Effects from the Academy Awards. That's pretty darn good. John Williams cleaned house again with awards from the BAFTA, Gold Spirit Awards, and the Grammys.
Now that's well fucking earned. God, the music is so good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that Imperial March right there, it's one of the ones that everyone talks about. Saturn Awards for the Best Sci-Fi Film, Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Special Effects from the Academy of Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror. A German Gold Screen Award, there we go. And as well as several Guinness World Records broken, and a People's Choice Award for Favorite Motion Picture. A lot of good stuff there. Ryan, I've got some fun facts here for you. They're a little wordy, so have at it. I apologize for them being long, but they're very good.
No worries.
They're very fun.
I like to hear myself talk. First and foremost, In order to avoid sharing creative rights, George Lucas decided to avoid using a major studio to finance this movie. Instead, he bankrolled the $18 million production himself, using a combination of his profits from Episode 1, A New Hope, and a bank loan. Now, although the move was risky, it paid off several times over.
13 to be
Lucas
exact.
recovered his investment within the matter of 3 months of the movie's release. He then showed gratitude far beyond the Hollywood norm by sharing the profits with his employees, which was a nearly $5 million sum in bonuses.
Golf clap.
Hats off to you, sir. Hats
Golf
off.
clap. There we go.
Next up, security surrounding the movie was so intense that George Lucas had regular reports about leaks from his actors and actresses. Now, George Lucas was so determined that the ending be kept secret that he had David Prowse, Darth Vader, say, "Obi-Wan killed your father," and dubbed it later to be, "I am your father." In fact, only 5 people eventually knew about the ending before the movie's release. George, who came up with the idea in his second draft after the death of Lee Brackett, director Irving Kershner, informed of such during story conferences, obviously. Screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan, also informed during story and script conferences. Mark Hamill, informed shortly before shooting the infamous scene. And James Earl Jones, who told during the recording sessions for the final dub, and who believed that Darth Vader was actually lying when he said it.
You can't keep secrets this well guarded anymore, though. It's really hard.
It's impossible. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to do something like this, and I can't. There's a part of me that wishes I could be there when it was released, just to see everybody's minds fucking blown.
That would be a very interesting scene to see.
Right. Well, last but not least on the fun fact train today, to preserve the dramatic opening of the Star Wars movies, George Lucas insisted on moving all the credits to the end of the movie. However, although the Writers Guild and Directors Guild had begrudgingly allowed this on Episode 4, because that movie wasn't expected to be very successful, they resented the trend being continued in this movie. First, they tried to pull this movie from release, but were unsuccessful. Then they fined Lucas heavily, and tried to fine Irving Kershner, but Lucas paid all the fines himself. It was nearly $250,000. Lucas then bitterly dropped his membership in the Writers Guild, Directors Guild, and the Motion Picture Association of America, a move that hindered his hiring choices in later movies. It's a hard stance to take, man.
That's a weird rule to keep, though. Like, I get you want people to be credited, but, like, I don't know, man. I kind of respect what George did, and I also think it kind of is a precursor to what Valve would eventually do with their video games. I don't know if you knew this, Ryan, but on Valve video games, if you look at the credits, they are not listed by department or area or in order of, like, expertise or importance. It's all alphabetical order. No one is considered more important than the other. They all had a hand in the game, and they all are there equally.
That's really cool.
I like the idea. I kind of wish films would do that too, just because it's kind of like, you know what? Why not? Just that way everyone feels like they're on the same page. Like, you're never going to get that, but I don't know. I just like the idea.
I like how the Marvel movies actually kind of like circumvent this whole thing by putting the stingers at the very end, so you have to sit through all the credits in order to actually get to the stinger. And after a while, literally, like, most people were staying because they knew there was going to be something extra, so everybody has to sit through the credits anyway.
It's an interesting idea, but I think the stingers really have to be worth it. Sometimes they aren't, and that does feel disappointing a bit. So as long as they're worth it, it is a cool idea, in my opinion.
I'm just going back to the stinger after Spider-Man: Homecoming, where where essentially Captain America just trolls everybody for waiting.
Yeah, that was a bit of a fucking dick punch right there.
I actually loved it, like, especially because they had Cap do it. It got a couple of chuckles out of me personally.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, let's get some initial thoughts going real quick. I've always been back and forth on this one and Return of the Jedi, for the Star Wars films that I like to come back to the most. That being said, I had a great time coming back to this one. And this is puts me in. This is really great timing because with this podcast, I'm just in the mood to watch these Star Wars movies, I think it just really heightened my enjoyment of it more than it usually would. So I really had a good time.
Okay. I feel like we're gonna have good conversations about this. My initial thoughts. I mean, this is definitely up there for me. I also vacillate between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi for my favorite of the original prequel. This makes a strong contention for it. I love the overall tone of the movie. I love that it keeps you on the edge of your seat even through the slow parts. It's just a grand old time, and I can't wait to talk about this more.
Looking forward to it. With that, I've got a synopsis here for you. And a lot happens here, so I'm just going to get straight to it.
Get it.
Thanks to some vicious spyware, the Empire learns of the rebel base from the land of ice and snow, where there is Vader's son and the Force powers flow. Luke gets attacked by the abominable snowman and is taken to a cave to be eaten alive. Using the Force and a lightsaber, he frees himself, only to nearly die in the cold anyway. A ghostly message from Obi-Wan tells him to go visit Dagobah. Where? How? That's up to you, little buddy. Han arrives to save him, shoving him into the carcass of a now-dead kangaroo alien, where they basically stay for the night until Rogue Squadron arrives. Now that the trio is reunited, Vader decides to show up and wreck a little shit. The trio is then forced to split again. Luke helps the rebellion until it's no longer convenient, and then decides to go to Dagobah as instructed. Han takes Leia and with him, and when all the other transports are gone. And they go on one hell of an adventure, getting lost in asteroid fields, inside a big space worm, and then they go back to the Emperor's, or then they go on the back of the Empire's flagship until they dump their load. They make their way to Cloud City, but they're followed by a familiar ship I think we've seen before. Maybe.
Oh, that guy.
I thought he died. Interesting. Luke arrives on Dagobah while all this is happening, and is greeted by a crazy Muppet hermit. Shenanigans happen until the Muppet reveals itself to be Yoda, Obi-Wan mentioned, in Luke's fever dream. First, he refuses to train the boy, but then gives in because Ghost Obi-Wan complained enough. So, Luke moves some rocks, complains about trying being good enough, and dealing with some foreshadowing in a Silent Hill-esque cave. But visions of a dark future pull Luke away from his training to save his friends. He must choose between training for the ultimate power or saving the people he loves. And so off he goes. And it turns out Cloud City, run by Two-Face, is not as it seems. C-3PO vanishes, and before long, the Empire and Vader are there to capture Leia and Han for torture. But no interrogation, because this is all a trap to lure Luke here. Han is put in carbonite, but whatever. Luke is hopeless. Wait, where am I? I jumped ahead a little bit. Luke arrives, and the showdown between Luke and Vader is on. But Luke is hopelessly outmatched. Just when he's at the end of his ropes, Vader reveals the truth. I am your father. Luke has a cry and falls down a shaft into the undercarriage of Cloud City, where Leia swings by for a pickup. Now that Han's captured, the team must rally together to save him and stop the Empire once and for all. With this new revelation, can Luke defeat his father and the Emperor who controls him? Will he bring balance to the Force? Tune in next time for Vader Kills the Emperor on Dragon Ball Z.
Spoilers! Tag your fucking spoilers, sir.
So Ryan, with all that, what do you think?
Oh my god, this was. I love that for the lack of a driving force in the plot. Like there's no explicit end goal that everybody is getting to, yet the movie constantly feels like it's moving forward. Like it has to do with the sequence of events, it has to do with the music, the overall tone. It just feels like an adventure from like the very beginning of the movie, even when the plot is, oh shit, the Empire's chasing us and our hyperdrive is broken. Go hide here. Oh shit, this isn't a cave. Oh shit, gotta hide from the Empire. Alright, we lost them, let's go to Cloud City. Oh shit, they're here waiting for us, and Luke is just off fucking meditating in a swamp.
You can kind of get the flavors from this film, and you can kind of see that it's very similar, like flavor-wise, in terms of like in a lot of ways to what is it? The one we just saw, Last Jedi. Very similar to that. big chase scene between Emperor and the small contingent of the rebellion, the main hero being on a planet somewhere training and having to go save them last minute and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of similarities. Now that I've seen this again after a while, it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize how many similarities there are to this one.
Yeah, there definitely are a lot of similarities, but I think like the best thing about this is that there really isn't like an end goal that people are running to. Like in New Hope, it's we have to find Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan's going to show us how to. Obi-Wan's going to help us save the princess, and then the princess is going to give the plans to the rebellion, and then we're going to blow up the Death Star. It's very goal oriented. This is just, oh shit, everything's breaking. We have to keep hiding. Oh god, oh god, oh god. But it never feels sloppy. It always feels like it's moving forward, and that's a really hard balance to reach, I think, in a movie like this. But they do it masterfully.
I would disagree slightly. I mean, most of what you say I agree with, but you said there's no goal that they're working towards. I slightly disagree. So in the previous film, New Hope, we're following Luke's story about how, they're going to help save the rebellion and everything. You see them blow up the Death Star. That's their goal. In this film, I would argue this movie inspires the films like Infinity War, where it's not your focus is on the hero. I mean, a lot of the stuff is focusing on the hero, but I think the main goal and the main thrust of the story here is on the villain. I mean, it's in the title, Empire Strikes Back. I think the goal of this film is definitely Vader's goal of turning Luke to his side of things and to crush the rebellion once and for all. I think we're seeing that happen, and because it has such a dark ending, I feel like you could arguably say he's successful on a lot of fronts.
So it's almost like the point of view for in terms of the end goal is actually from the antagonist side as opposed to the protagonist.
Indeed.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I could see that. I can actually see that.
It opens the door for some interpretations, I tell you what.
I mean, it makes sense because our quote-unquote protagonists are bouncing around from place to place just trying to stay alive and stay ahead of the Empire, but all the goals pursued in the movie are actively done by Vader and by the Empire. Mm-hmm. So it's more just like them trying to stay ahead while Vader is just constantly checking off boxes on his plot to-do list. That's really, really interesting. I like that.
God,
thank you for that.
I'm just imagining Vader with the to-do list, going like, okay, let's see, what did I do today? I chased the rebels, I crushed the rebellion, I told
escaped
Luke.
Again, remind me to kill Captain Nita.
Let's see, I need to pick up milk on the way home, okay. But no. I definitely think that's what the direction for this one is. I definitely think it inspires stuff like Thanos' journey in Infinity War, where you do see the heroes around doing their thing, but the main thrust and the main end goal of the film is definitely following what Vader or Thanos or so on are doing. And I think it really works for this film in a lot of ways. It really does kind of have a core to the film that the other heroes just kind of bounce around on until the end point in Cloud City.
Yeah. No, I now that I'm thinking about that, I would definitely agree. That's why it feels so different, because it's like the goals being pursued are all from the antagonist point, and you're just trying to stay one step ahead of it. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to start with broader themes, or do we want to start with more nitty-gritty stuff, you think?
I just follow you and talk for a while, so whatever you want to talk about, I'm good. I can talk about this movie for hours.
Oh, I know you can. Okay. Let's start with some broad strokes and maybe work our way down a bit. So jumping down the list a little bit here, this film, how do you think this film handles, or what does this film say about the concept of sacrificing yourself for others? That theme, I think, is prevalent throughout the whole film.
Ooh. Interesting.
Because you have some examples. You have Han going to save Luke in the snow. You have Luke losing his hand trying to save his friends from Vader. You have Lando's struggle with the city and his friends versus Darth Vader. There's a lot of people sacrificing a lot of stuff. Luke abandoning his training to save his friends. A lot of people are giving up important stuff or seemingly important stuff for what one could call the greater good. I'm curious what you think the film is saying about that.
I mean, I've never really thought about that particular theme. Because, I mean, for, like, in a large part, like, all of those endeavors are successful. You know, I mean, Han successfully saves Luke from the winter cold in the night. Lando successfully helps Leia and Chewie to escape, and they actually pick up Luke. Luke, although he gets gravely injured, actually succeeds in helping them escape, because if Luke didn't come, then none of that plan would have come to fruition. R2 wouldn't have been there to save the ship and to fix the hyperdrive at the end. So all of those things actually come to fruition. I think what's really interesting is that the old, wise, Jedi were the ones saying, don't do it.
Interesting. I'd hear more about this idea. Where are you going with this one?
Well, think about it. His first instinct is, I have to drop everything and I have to go save my friends because they might die. And they're talking about, no, you have to stay here, you have to complete the training. Only a true Jedi Knight with a mastery of the Force can hope to stand a chance against Vader. So they're like, if you honor what your friends are fighting for, you will let them perish so that you can finish the fight. And he says, no, fuck that. I can't sacrifice my friends for this quote-unquote greater good. I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish the training, but I can't leave my friends to die. Even if it is explicitly a trap, I can't do that. So it speaks to very interesting points about Jedi wisdom. And if you read the EU, that's no longer canon.
Why would we do that, Ryan? It's no longer canon. It's not important.
But they go in depth about the shortcomings of the old Jedi wisdom and how it needs to change to have a more in-depth understanding of what it is to just be a sentient creature, to be an emotional creature that has these ties and these feelings. They're important. You can't just shut them off and become so disconnected from the world that you're trying to save. That's never going to work. So that's one of the shortcomings that's actually addressed when Luke rebuilds the Jedi Order, over these teachings.
And that's kind of picked up on a little bit in Last Jedi. We'll get to that later, but they do kind of hint at that a little bit, which is interesting. So for me, with the whole sacrifice thing and what you bring up, and I'm going to make comparisons here, but I think they're literally 1-to-1. This reminds me of the season finale of Season 2 of Last Airbender, where Aang is given the opportunity to master the Avatar state, but he gives it up because he sees his friends are in danger, and literally has the same thing happen to him. He gets into a big fight, and ends up getting injured gravely to the point where you wonder if he's going to be able to recover, and it ends on that cliffhanger there. Just like this film does. Clearly they drew inspiration from this, for sure.
Definitely.
And what I always took away from that is that no matter, the film's basically saying about the whole idea of sacrificing is, no matter what the cost is, if there are people you care about, you do have to go out of your way to do something for them. You can't just idly sit by and do nothing. Because I believe it's Iroh who says it in that show, and I think it sums up everything pretty well, is that, power can be great and everything, but what good is it when you don't have the people there to care about to protect with that power,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So, I definitely think that this film hits that really hard, and they repeat that lesson quite a bit, I think. So they do a good job with it. Good job. Another broad strokes theme here. How does this film play with the theme of truth, often coming from what cannot be seen? And is this successful in how they do it?
Truth coming from what cannot be seen.
And I can give some examples if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
So the base example is Yoda. Him, coming off as this little Muppet hermit crazy guy and ends up being like this Jedi Master. Don't expect that right away. I mean, for us we do, but, Luke didn't see it coming. It was not something he expected. It wasn't the truth he saw.
This is a goofy-ass Muppet. Why would you ever think this was the great Jedi Master?
There's the reveal of Luke's whole heritage, including the hinting that he might go to the dark side with that cave of darkness he went into. And then there's back to the Lando story, where there's his whole, playing up being a friend, and then, hey, I'm actually with Vader right now, so, yeah. What do you think about them apples, guys? I mean, it's not as overt as the sacrificial theme, but I do think there's a few good examples here, for sure.
Definitely. I think now that you're bringing it up, and now that I'm thinking about it more in that vein, I think a major theme in this particular movie is the theme of perception.
That's what I wanted
You
to
know,
use. Perception. Ah,
yeah.
words.
I got you. This is what I'm here for.
I'm the English
but
major, though. I should know these words.
I think this movie focuses on not accepting things as they appear. It plays with perception, and a lot of Luke's training is like explicitly about broadening your horizons, opening your perception, and really seeing what lies in between things. You know, he describes the Force as an energy from all living things that encompasses the entire universe, and it's between all different things. It lies between things, like between the land and the ship, right before he lifts it out of the bog. So his whole thing is about, like, the whole concept of his training is really about focusing his mind, being able to truly perceive the world around him and what kind of lies beneath. I think the audience is kind of ushered into that thinking along with Luke as well, to the point where, and Yoda even cautions that there are hidden dangers that you just can't see yet. So he's trying to get him ready for it before he goes out. And because he leaves too early, one of those hidden truths smack him in the face, with Vader being his father. So yeah, I really like how subtly that is played. And you can tell, like, a lot of the story that doesn't even focus on Luke also deals with perception. You know, you have Han and Leia hiding in a cave, what they think is a cave, but actually isn't a cave. You have them escaping from the Empire by masquerading as garbage before they get thrown in, before they go off into hyperspace. It's all about playing with perception. And of course, Han and Leia are captured by someone they perceive to be a friend, but is actually playing a deeper game all along.
Very, very good, very good. And I like, so for me, I like films that definitely dive into this whole perception plane a bit, or playing with perception, I guess. Because what film is essentially another perception of what's happening, another perspective, I should say. Because we're not seeing it from the essence of the character, we're not seeing it from anyone within the film. We're seeing it from a omniscient third-person perspective. We're seeing everything. So we get to see how all these different perspectives line up, how they clash, how they match, and so I think films that play with that the most are just the most engaging, because you get to see just what stuff is hidden, and then when you come back to it, it just becomes more obvious, so you see the things that weren't there before, but now you just are more hyper aware of what's happening. So, no, I think this film does a great job with that, quite a bit, actually.
Definitely, sir.
Let's see. All right, we'll jump into some more nitty-gritty stuff here, I think. First, before I forget about it, I didn't write this down, but I am curious. The Leia-Han relationship. What were your thoughts on that?
You know, like, it's funny what kind of jumps out at you after you, like, when you, it's been years since you've seen a movie, and this is actually one of the big things that jumped out at me. I'm so glad you asked a question on it, because the Han and Leia relationship is iconic. It's like, it's old school romance. Like, when you think of Star Wars romance, you think of Han and Leia, and it's super cute, and they go on in the EU to be married for a very long time and have great children and whatnot. Well, one of them's great. The other one turns out to be a Sith Lord.
Wait.
Anyway,
The ooh? The ooh?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Is that the thing Brexit did?
It's... Anyway. So that, like, when you look back at it nostalgically, it's a fantastic relationship. But when you watch it in 2019, you have to wonder, a lot of this shit that Han gets up to would not fly in this day and age. It just would not go. And I don't think, like, watching it, I don't think any of it is intended to be forceful, just like unwarranted harassment. That was just how you were romantic back then. It was being persistent and egging the person on to show their true feelings. Like, I don't care that they're saying no. I know that they like me. I'm gonna edge them on until they finally say, "Okay, you're right. Fuck, I like you."
Well, Ryan, I learned that girls like it when you're mean to them.
Yeah, right. That's how it worked back in the 80s. So, I mean, like, watching it, I don't feel bad, but it's still, it rubs me oddly, because it's like, yeah, in 2019 you try this shit, nah, dude, that's just no good. You'll get blown out on Twitter real fast.
That death tweet will get you.
It will.
But no, I look at the relationship a little bit. It kind of reminds me of Sam and Diane from Cheers. And I'm like, man, you two really shouldn't be together, but you're gonna end up together, aren't you?
It's weird, our societal perception. Another thing, going back to perception, like watching it back in the 90s, you're like, yeah, that's old school love right there, man. That's how great romances start. It starts with them being antagonistic to one another, and then him finally getting her to admit that she has feelings for him because he's actually a good guy despite being a scoundrel. And of course, you prove this by cornering her in a dark corner.
So wait a minute. So we have 3 trilogies here. All 3 are defined by one central relationship, so to speak. In the prequels, it's a bad boy Anakin having a girl fall in love with him who's like a respectable dignitary kind of person or someone of high importance, and they form a relationship that's toxic to some extent, and one of them ends up getting killed for it. We have the next generation here, where we have a bad boy falling in love with a dignitary or someone of high importance, and eventually one gets killed, but not necessarily for it. I guess their son kills him, so yeah, I guess he kind of does get killed for it a little bit.
He doesn't get killed for the relationship, come on!
And in the next movie, we're kind of exploring another relationship between Rey and Kylo, maybe. We're not really sure where that's going yet, but it's kind of... something's there, you know it. But it is interesting to think that we have 3 generations, each exploring relationships a different way. The first one from the prequels, I should say, has a more overly romantic vibe to it. This one has a more antagonistic vibe to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how we define what the next generation's going to be. I
mean, the next generation's, like, quote unquote relationship is pretty fucking antagonistic right now.
Yeah, I guess maybe we need to redefine the middle one a little bit.
Lord.
Maybe. Okay, a little bit more broad strokes before we get back into the nitty-gritty. How does our understanding of the Force differ in this film from A New Hope?
It's interesting because they've managed to take this concept that's, like, mysterious and inexplicable, and they give it a little bit more of a concrete philosophy, but they still manage to keep from like putting it in a box. You know, they give it an explanation, but they don't put any like hard numbers or scientific fact behind it. I'm looking at you, episode 1. Fuck your midichlorians. No.
They use the midichlorians to raise your ship.
No. It's not. No.
You need more midichlorians.
No.
Master Yoda, the midichlorians. They're over 9,000!
God in heaven. But no, I like that. We get more in depth to the philosophy of the Force as opposed to just like the hard and fast rules of this magic system. It's bringing you more in tune with like the state of thought behind using the Force, as opposed to, oh well, you have this energy source that's inside of you, and you can use it to essentially do telekinetic things and other spooky shit that you can't even see just yet. So yeah, I think it broadens it, but it doesn't hamper it down with its explanation. That's something pretty difficult to do. but I think they do it very well here.
Well, I think it's good because they kind of slowly pull out what the Force is. Like they aren't like you said, they aren't gonna like deep dive into metachlorian counts and all that nonsense because no one cares. But they do stretch out what the Force can do and how one is to understand it, and I think they do a good job not going too far with it because the next film you get a little bit more deeper into the Force with the concept of the dark side in more detail, the Sith lightning, all that other stuff. Like it gets drawn out slowly over the course of these 3 films until it's like full-on magic effects are being thrown across the room, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I also love that the teachings of it are rooted so deeply in philosophy because there is an inherent, or at least as we know it thus far, there is pretty much an inherent morality within the usage of the Force. And so the understanding and the utilization of the Force is less rooted in actual technique, but more a mindset. And it's really important to teach Force users what type of mindset to be in to like to change the type of Force that they are using, or at least in their understanding of it so far. Mm-hmm. So I really, really like that it's tied to that. It makes it a more of a philosophical battle as opposed to just, oh, they're spooky space warlocks, man. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and they're just fucking up the galaxy just with telekinetic shit and nonsense.
Well, and that's the important thing, too, is that the struggle is not just physical, it's not just mental, but it's philosophical, too. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And if your fight between your protagonist and antagonist has no philosophical value, you could argue that the fight is almost kind of pointless then. So.
Yeah, it just ends up being 2 strong people fighting for no fucking reason. They're like 2 strong people.
I wonder
2 strong people
before.
fighting. Yeah, 2 strong people fighting because the story demands it. Like that's it.
I'm not going to throw Batman vs Superman under the bus again. I promise I won't. We've done it enough. It's already been.
They tried, they made a half-assed attempt to make that philosophical, but that just didn't work. It just didn't work.
It's like they tried to shove too much philosophy into it, and they didn't really know what they were trying to say with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of philosophy, so earlier you mentioned that the Jedi were trying to help Luke become open-minded to the Force and everything. But at the same time, though, the Jedi are very rigid in the ideas of what can be done with the Force. I mean, the whole lacking of emotion and stuff, and they address that later on and everything in the future films and whatnot, and it's just a very interesting dynamic that they have going on. And so that brings me to my next question, Ryan. Was Yoda a good teacher? And do you think his failings in the prequels improved his teachings or negatively impacted them?
I mean, oh god.
I hit him with a whammy there, folks.
Oh man.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
I'll never go so far as to say the Jedi are evil. I will definitely agree that their rigid moral code leads to a lot of fucking pitfalls that they don't see. I think that Yoda actually falls into like the biggest pitfall of all with the teachings, because if you recall earlier, I talked about how the Jedi seek to like distance themselves from the people that they're trying to save. Mm-hmm. They're trying to like rise above emotion so they can be clear-headed and calm and dispassionate when they use the Force. But they use it to protect these ideals of like truth and justice and whatnot, and like good things and saving good people. Yet they try to remain separate from them, which causes a lot of issues. And what does Yoda do after he fails to take out the Emperor in Episode 3? He fucking strands himself on this lonely planet that's just a planet-wide swamp with a bunch of non-sentient life forms and slimy things and a nexus of dark side power.
Oh my
God.
God.
He hides himself. He separates himself from the world. And so his understanding of the Force doesn't really get to deepen. He doesn't get a broader understanding and thus become a better teacher through it. Instead, he kind of stagnates. And so the teachings that he's giving Luke, while really good at an introductory level, Like it's still got all of the failings inherent in the old Jedi Order, which is why Luke has to change it once he comes to realize those shortcomings. I think he's a good teacher, but I think he's working with outdated material. It's like a good teacher using a 10-year-old textbook. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Man, I've been in those classes too. I definitely think that Yoda is a good instructor for the most basic elements of the Force, without question. Like, he knows what he's doing. But no, you're not wrong. His teachings are outdated, and he never bothered to adapt them or learn from his mistakes, and that's problematic. I think, if anything, the experience with Anakin and the fall of the Jedi may have made him double down on his beliefs, because he thinks that his beliefs are what caused Anakin to turn the way he did. But if he had learned anything from it, he would have realized that, oh, this rigid structure is pressuring Anakin to things he shouldn't be doing. Maybe if we were eased up on him a little bit, he probably wouldn't have turned into such an asshole.
Right. I mean, I think he looks at Anakin and say, well, god damn it, if he had just distanced himself from his emotions like I told him, none of these Jedi would have died. When he should have said, what is it about our teachings that made this kid, who was in such desperate need of help, feel like he couldn't come to us?
It's a very conservative mentality, which actually works very well for him, in the sense that, from what I know from conservatives I know personally, and from being raised in a conservative household, the idea that conservatives have is, if there's a problem, if someone has a problem, it's usually on the individual's fault, not on the structure that put him in that position in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely what Yoda's doing here. He's blaming the individual, failing to realize that the structure that he was within didn't quite give him the guidance or teachings he needed. You could argue that maybe that he's right, though, because Anakin's the only one of those Jedi who fell for it. At the same time, though, there are other Jedis who betrayed the Order for various reasons. So, is the Order flawed? Are the individuals flawed? The answer is obviously both, but no one's going to agree on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I like, personally, I've battled with like a reluctance of like blaming the system or blaming my own foibles, because there's an element of personal responsibility that you don't want to lose. Yeah. If you turn into like, oh well, everything is everybody else's fault. Obviously, I'm perfect, so like it's obviously the system that failed me. Well, there's a hell of a lot of pitfalls in that line of thinking. But if you overcorrect too hard, if you say literally everything is this person's fault, you never look at the surroundings and what is leading people to make those decisions. So I think you're definitely right. It lies in both, but unless people are open-minded enough to change, then nothing's ever going to get done. And expecting change to come from Yoda's side is kind of foolish, because he's been training Jedi in the same teachings for 8 centuries. And he comes from a time, remember, he comes from a Jedi Order that was pretty much at the height of its power for like over a fucking millennia.
You heard it here, folks. Yoda is likely a MAGA supporter.
No, I didn't say that. Damn it. So if you guys want to send us fan art of Yoda wearing a MAGA hat, please go ahead and send that to just throw me into a frothing rage.
I mean, we've kind of put him down as a conservative. It's not a hard stretch.
Yeah, but Yoda's not going to be like, build a wall to keep everybody out of the Jedi Temple. No, fuck all that.
I don't know. You could convince me otherwise.
Those towers are very tall, and you can't really get in. No. I refuse. I refuse to play along.
No, I actually did want to go back to something you said, though, about him being on a swamp planet. It immediately made me think of what would happen if Yoda had, like, Shrek's accent. Do it in my swamp, what are ya?
God damn it.
This is a fun one.
This is a good one, yeah.
Okay. Within the context of the original release, so no prequels or anything, what does Vader being Luke's father change for Luke, for Vader, and for the narrative as a whole?
I think it goes back to that topic of perception, and how this movie really plays with the fact that nothing is exactly as it seems. you go back to A New Hope, everything is pretty straightforward. You know, quintessential hero's journey. Young kid wants adventure and excitement, finds an old mentor in the woods, says, hey, you've got this spooky magical power, I'm going to teach you how to use it, but first we have to go rescue the princess so that we can help the rebellion blow up the Death Star. Straightforward. There's a big guy in a black suit that just radiates terror in our way. We're going to have to get past that guy. The old mentor dies killing that dude. He's obviously the bad guy. There's nothing deeper about that subtext. It's just straight up adventure. Good stuff, but straightforward. And this movie, we're like, okay, now let's look deeper. Now, the spooky guy that radiates terror, he's your dad. How do you work that into your worldview? Like, Yoda's been Yoda, the whole movie has been teaching us that everything is not exactly how it seems when you just look at it for the first time. You have to learn to look deeper. And Vader, like the twist at the end really throws everybody for a loop, because it's the movie taking a definitive stand and saying, hey, this pillar, this thing that you understood that wasn't going to move, all of a sudden we just flipped it on its head. Now what does that mean? And the next movie will continue to subvert expectations with Vader's End, which we'll get to next week, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But what it changes for Luke, it drives home that point of perception, that point that everything is not as it seems. And I think that failure, like, although I hesitate really to call it a failure because he learned from it, like in the next movie, you can see he's wiser, he's more perceptive, he's more calm and collected. He's actually taken a lot of these teachings to heart. And that's where Luke really gets into Jedi mode. So I hesitate to call the fight at the end of Empire a failure, because he takes those lessons to heart and it genuinely changes him.
I think you could still call it a failure, because I think that learning from failures, you learn more from it than you do from success. But that's semantics, I would argue. So
yeah. I mean, so so if you want to get to like brass tacks about it, did Luke actually fail? Like, he went there to save his friends, and his friends were saved explicitly by him being there. So he actually succeeded in what he was going for. Of course, he lost a hand. He failed to actually beat Vader, but I don't think he went to Cloud City to fight Vader. I think he went to Cloud City to save his friends, and in that he was a success.
No, but I do imagine he views it as his own personal failure, because I think that's what he wanted to do, is he wanted to prove he could handle it, and I think he let himself down on that one for sure.
That's fair. But I think, like you said, learning from failure, you definitely learn more from failure than you do from success. And with that harsh conflict with Vader, taking his hand, losing the lightsaber that Obi-Wan gave him, and then after all was said and done, then he finds out that the guy that he's been trying to fight this whole time is actually his father. Like, it's literally the pinnacle of not everything is as it seems. And I think that twist is the starting point of Luke's wisdom. Like, that one moment is really where he starts to get it.
And I think the path Luke takes when he finds this out too, to jump off your springboard off what you said, is that Vader, there's no connection between him and Vader technically. Like, he never knew Vader. He grew up without him. And so, by all intents and purposes, he's just another guy in a suit. He just happens to be his father. It's like, okay, well, no big deal. But it's a cautionary tale, I think, more than anything. I think once once it's revealed Luke sees who it is, he has a moment to sit down and kind of percolate on it a little bit. He realizes the story that Obi-Wan and Yoda have been telling about his father in the Clone Wars and how he died, or how he... or how it's Obi-Wan's biggest regrets or failures or whatever, and seeing what actually happened, you see that it wasn't so much that the relationship itself's not important necessarily, but just this is what Luke could become if he's not careful. And this is what could happen to him if he doesn't heed the warnings of Yoda and Obi-Wan like they've been telling him about. I'm not saying that they're 100% right, because, I mean, we do understand that, their rigid ways aren't 100% perfect, but it does kind of reel Luke back in. It's like, hey, Luke, so you know how those guys told you that if you give in to the dark side, horrible things will happen? That's your dad. That's what happened to him when he went to the dark side. What do you think? And
I love that, yeah. I mean, you bring up a really good point, like, bringing up what Luke knew about his father at that point. Like, Luke knew he was a general in, like, he was a great Jedi, a general in the Clone Wars, an amazing, fantastic pilot, just an overall great man. And at Luke's point at the beginning of Empire kind of mirrors this. He's a leader of a squadron in the Rebel Army. He's helping fight back against the Empire. He's well known by, like, all the people that follow him. He's got this magic-ass sword that cut through anything. He had been taught in the ways of this spooky-ass magic. Like, he's a known figure. And throughout the course of this movie, you also see him showing that impatience, that irritability, that slight bit of anger. And mirroring that with what we know about his father, and then showing, hey, if you like the quick and easy path led your father, who was pretty much in the same shoes that you're in, to this guy, the spooky dude that radiates terror. Yeah, please don't do that. That you're right, it is a cautionary tale. And the reveal at the end of that really drives that home. Because then you take all the great stuff that he knows about Anakin Skywalker, and you take all the terrible stuff that he knows about Darth Vader, and then at that one moment, those two things connect. Both sides are true, but something happened in between those two things, and the first half of his story mirrors Luke's, so the second half he wants to not mirror. And see, and that twist really convinces him to take the other path.
Indeed, and there was discussions in the makings of the next movie, which we'll get to next week, about Luke maybe turning to the dark side. I think even what's his name, Mark Hamill, had suggested that to Lucas, and we'll definitely dive into that more next week. I'm curious your thoughts on that direction they could have gone.
Oh yeah.
Going back to the Vader reveal. Why couldn't Obi-Wan have been honest with Luke from the beginning, and was that the right decision to make?
I feel like the overall truth that his father, who was this great person, turned and did unspeakable things and became this figure of evil in essentially the Space Reich. I mean, I think that would have been too much for Luke at the beginning of Episode 4. I think he needed time to grow, he needed to experience things, and he needed some of that wisdom to guide him through that jarring that jarring truth. Because, I mean, that's the type of shit that can turn your worldview entirely upside down. Like, you have like 18, 19 years thinking your father was this great person, and then your father shows up and says, by the way, I'm Space Hitler now, so come with me. And like,
I wish my dad would burst the door right now and just say he's Space Hitler. That'd just be the fucking greatest joke in the
world. Your dad just comes through with the respirator.
Aaron, I have something to tell you.
What is it, Father?
I voted for Trump.
And then he puts on a red hat.
Oh no! Jokes on you, Internet. I already knew that truth, and it's very depressing.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think you make a good point. Him knowing from the beginning could have definitely been a mistake because Luke could have been brash, decided to go off and take on Vader early on to kind of, fix the family name. He might not have even believed Obi-Wan. Heck, he might have even just been like, shit, my dad's a pimp. I'm going to go join him for now.
Yeah.
So
there's a whole bunch of bad ways that could have gone.
I definitely think they should have told him before he went to go face Vader for sure, because that would have better mentally prepared him for it. But
I think that's one of the big things why they didn't want him to go. They were like, wait, nope, he's not ready for that just yet. Like, he's not ready to fight Vader because Vader's spooky and powerful, and he still needs training. But there's a truth out there that's going to smack him in the face that he's not ready to deal with mentally, emotionally, philosophically. Like he needed more training, not just in the art of combat or in the ways of the Force. Like, he needed more of a philosophical, yes? Sure.
Yes.
Philosophical grasp on, like, their teachings to be able to navigate the rocky road that is Vader is my father.
Indeed.
I don't think even telling him right then and there would have helped him at that point.
Yeah, but you guys could have at least told him his sister was Leia. Come on.
Oh, speaking of which, so the end where you find out that Leia also has the Force is like, honestly, it's like my favorite part of the movie. Honestly, like the Luke, I am your father is iconic. It's iconic. But in a movie where like bad things have been happening and like you're pretty much like at the edge of despair, like Luke is hanging from this city in the clouds. Nobody's coming to get him. He, like, Obi-Wan already told him, I can't interfere if this goes south. So he's just stuck. And literally, the one thing that saves them is something that nobody else saw coming. And he's just like, yo, Leia, hear me. This is a Force move that he didn't even know was a move. But he just reached out to the first person that he thought of. And Leia's like, Luke, boom, it's perfect. In like bad news, like in like a repeated string of bad events, Luke, like Leia actually being able to hear him through the Force was like the perfect counterpoint where it's just like, hope is not lost. There's somebody else who can also do this.
When we saw this the other day, I told Amanda, how do we know it's really the Force? Couldn't this just be a twin thing?
It could technically also be a twin thing.
Okay. I got a couple more and then we'll wrap it up. We're going a little long, but I figured we were going to a little bit.
It's Empire, man. We gotta talk about this.
It is. No, that's already that one. Luke's decision to abandon his training is a familiar trope we've seen in other shows before. We already mentioned stuff like Avatar. Do you agree with Luke's decision? What would you have done, Ryan?
I do agree with Luke's decision at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, it goes back to like no matter the cost, you have to like go and save your friends. And I like that he held on to that part of himself. Even though it cost him dearly, he was able to save the people that mattered the most to him. I think that Yoda and Obi-Wan's advice to stay, to let his friends possibly die while he trains it's reflective of their old school mentality of this separation from other normal people, from attachments, from emotions. They're like, no, all that shit leads you to do crazy things. You have to be above that so that you can act clear-headedly and compassionately when you do it. But their choice is to remain apart from the people they want to save. And Luke says, no, my heart, I can't make that choice. I have to try and save them. So I think I would want to say that I would be as brave as Luke was, but that's spooky shit, man. Like, my friends are being tortured by Darth Vader. I alone have to go save them. That's a tall order.
I feel like I wouldn't have gone headlong into the fight like Luke did. I would have probably been more like stealthy and crafty about it, but Yeah, I think I would have done the same thing. I would have gone and helped the people I care about, because...
I mean, to be fair, Luke was trying to be sneaky about it.
Yeah, but
wasn't just,
he's
like,
no solid
thrashing
snake,
in.
Ryan. He's no solid snake.
He is no solid snake. I mean, but the only like crazy shit happened like right before they got them to the was right before they got to the ship when Leia was like, "Luke, it's a trap." And he's like, "I kind of already know it's a trap, but I have to do this."
Luke, you've triggered my trap card.
Like, it's been face down for like 8 turns, dude. I already knew it was a trap card. Just tell me what the fuck it does.
Yeah, no, I think definitely I agree with you. I mean, it's what Uncle Iroh would do. I follow Uncle Iroh to the grave. He's the coolest. So
yes, now that's wisdom.
That's uber wisdom right there. Yeah, those are all the discussion questions I have planned out that really we haven't touched on, except for the last one, which is Luke turning the dark side, the hints dropping towards it. I think that's better saved for next episode, honestly, because it's where it gets really brought up the most in discussions, I think. So I'll hold that off for the next episode, I think.
All right, we'll hold that.
Anything else that I have not covered that you'd like to hit up?
No, I was so glad that you brought up the Han and Leia thing. It was the one thing that kept like punching me in the face. I'm just like, yeah, that's problematic. Oh no, wait,
yeah.
No, dude, she doesn't want you touching her. What are you doing? Stop! Oh God.
It's safe to say some films, they don't age well in terms of social consciousness, but that doesn't make them bad. It just means that they were from a different time. That's all it is.
Yeah. They were from a different time. We don't excuse it, but we know that we can do better now. Mm-hmm. And our consciousness has elevated a lot higher since this movie has come out.
Well, and I like to look at it, too, is it's not making that film bad. It's just that's when it came out. That's just reflecting the sensibilities of the time. So it gives you more of a lens into the historical, cultural landscape of what happened back then versus what is good and what is correct. So
Definitely.
Yeah. So with that in mind, a quick message, or a quick shout out to our mailbag. If you want to drop us a hint as to your favorite parts of this movie, your favorite philosophies you have tied to this movie, or if you just want to tell us if you want to record yourself doing your Darth Vader impression, remember, it is I am your father, not Luke, I am your father. You can send that to us via links on Tumblr, Twitter, or Facebook. You can also reach out to us on our email. Ryan, what is that email?
That email is, if you only knew the power of the dark side.
Excuse me. That is evacstation@gmail.com.
Dark side. Possible side effects include wrinkly skin, heart attacks, and of course your friends hating you.
And a gravelly voice. That shit does. That's a killer on your larynx.
Mm-hmm. If you have any side effects, go see a doctor. If you haven't already killed him. Let's go ahead and review this movie. So we have a scale ranking from platinum to shit and all the colors in between. If you want to see more details, there's a link in the description down below. Ryan, where are you going to rank this movie?
Guys, this is... So I'm hesitant to do this before Return. I'm really hesitant to do this before Return.
Really?
Because I'm trying to only give 1 platinum. I'm trying real hard to only give 1 platinum. But you know what? God damn it, this is my platinum. It has to be my platinum. It's such a deeper look into the mythos, into the philosophy of the world. It deepens it and it explains it further, but it still maintains that air of adventure. It never feels like stuffy or stodgy or boring. It maintains like that sense of urgency even through the training at Dagobah, because when it's not like a physical rush, the guy is like really tested. He's pushing at the boundaries of your beliefs, of how you think about the world, of how you look at things. And the twist to end all twists, with Vader being your father, with Leia having the fucking Force, with Luke losing his goddamn hand and his father's lightsaber, and then he finds out that he is his father. Come on, this is my platinum. I have to give it to it. I might eat my words when we see Jedi, when we see Return in a little bit. But right now, this is my platinum.
I am hesitant to agree, but I'm looking at the facts here and comparing this to the ones what we've seen before, especially if we're just focusing on the current trilogy. This is a step up in a lot of ways from the previous film, in terms of technical aspects, in terms of the scope, in terms of the lore and the writing. The fact that he brought a whole team on to help him write this film instead of just doing it all himself, that alone to me is very good, because I have said before, I'll say it again, Lucas is great at crafting worlds, and he's good at making lore. He is very bad at weaving it together in a coherent way.
Definitely.
And I think the fact he had a team here to help him put this together allowed this film to bring out the best of what he can do with the best of what they can do.
I love that he recognized his shortcomings and worked to address it, as opposed to just, like, shouldering on a pride.
Mm-hmm. I wish he had carried that lesson with him in the prequels, but that's neither here nor there. But, no, this film does a lot of things right, and so few things wrong. Like, there's a few hiccups here and there, sure, but none of it is, like, egregiously bad like we've seen before, and it all ages surprisingly well. With that in mind, I think I have to give this a platinum, just on those grounds alone.
Yeah.
It's hard to really fight against that. It really is.
Now, we're going to have, like, a super in-depth conversation on Return, and we might end up giving out 2 platinums. You know what, guys? Sue us. These are really good movies. These are really good movies.
This original trilogy knew how to handle its shit, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we rank the Disney trilogy once we get to that one, because that's definitely divisive among people. I know that for sure.
I will be very, very interested in watching the new trilogy after, like, revisiting all of these chapters, like, especially because the new trilogy it leans so heavily on the original trilogy, so it'll be very interesting to compare and contrast that shit.
Mm-hmm. I've heard rumors there might be a Skywalker, an Anakin cameo in the next one, but we'll see. I think that
don't get me started on 9.
No,
so close.
If they bring Hayden Christensen in for 9, I won't be upset. I think the kid has earned a break and a chance to redeem himself. But we'll see.
No.
We'll see.
Yeah, not mad, not like anger at the actor or anything. It's just we like 9. You know what? I'm gonna save it. I'm going to save the gripe because it's a whole ass gripe. I'll just save it.
You heard it here, folks. So if you want to hear that, tune in a few weeks when we get to that. Until then, next week you will be joining us for Return of the Jedi. Get hype. Get real hype. Thank you for joining us this week. Ryan, thank you for joining me this week. It's been a good time.
Always a pleasure, sir.
And we'll see all of you after the credits.
Bye.